Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of our Tech Tuesday webinar. My name is Kevin Marheine, and I am your MC for this afternoon. Today, we have a cloud bursting with Citrix Autoscale presentation that our Director of Hybrid Services, Ryan Hinkleman, will be walking you through. But before I toss this over to Ryan to walk us through his presentation today, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you do have any questions, please feel free to enter those into the chat. We will have a little bit of time here at the end of the presentation to answer any of those questions. We will also be sending out a recording of today's webinar, so if you want to refer back to any of the material that Ryan covers here, or if you registered and were unable to attend right now as we're actually presenting, you'll be able to go back and watch that on demand at your convenience. With those two things out of the way, I will go ahead and turn it over to Ryan here. And Ryan, thank you for joining us, and looking forward to the presentation.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Kevin. Today we're going to be talking about cloud bursting with Citrix Autoscale. So we will hop right in and get started. And really what we're talking about when we're talking about bursting is really the leveraging of the Autoscale feature in the Citrix product. And we'll talk about that and how it works in just a minute. But when we talk about the notion of cloud bursting in and of itself, we're really talking about why you would want to quickly scale up or scale down, with Autoscale being that tool to do so. And so a lot of different situations where that might be the case. For example, you might have seasonal or shift-based work. So seasonal, I know, will be coming up here shortly as we get through Thanksgiving, and I think today is even Prime Day, so you can understand that some of that retail space may have a flex up, flex down requirement as logistics trains change, as retail sites change, as seasonal workers come in and out. You may want to go up and down, and you may not want to necessarily buy the on-prem hardware that you have to retain for that small period of time. It makes sense to potentially burst that extra capacity into the cloud. Maybe you've had to invoke DR and something bad has happened. Well, let's take that action and quickly spool up those machines. Or maybe we have just some other event in our normal course of business, maybe a month end, that's just going to require a little bit more work. So we will then maybe talk through an example scenario in a more technical sense of how that looks, and then dive into some of the deeper features. So again, just want to talk to a little bit about some of the features that you get when you look at laying Citrix on top of a WVD platform and some of the unique value adds. You can certainly see that Autoscale is one of these key pieces. This is a technology that will really allow you to cost effectively manage that Azure workload. Because we now have that power of the cloud, we want to be able to spin up, and we can spin up to our heart's content and to business need requirements very, very quickly. But this tool gives us a tool above and beyond what just WVD offers natively to really manage that and make sure that we're being cost effective in doing so, and matching our need to our business patterns most effectively, along with all of the other goodness you see here on this page that is the Citrix value prop, especially Citrix on WVD. So let's really dive in, and this graph says a whole lot about the premise of Autoscale and why we might want this in any one scenario, and any of those scenarios that we really talked about. You can see in this example, we've got 20 hosts. So maybe these are multi-session Windows 10 sitting in Azure. And just because I have 20 doesn't mean I need to use 20. So I'm not going to. You'll see a little bit later that we have some controls that are schedule based, so time, and we have some controls that are demand based. And what you'll see here on this screen is really a measure of really both of those. So if you look on the left-hand side, you can see that my max capacity, as noted by the orange line, is 20 hosts. My scheduled capacity is really that 11 hosts there that you see the flat line across the top on all of those. And then you can see my actual load. And as long as my load doesn't exceed that green in this case, or definitely not the orange, I'm meeting my demand. And ideally, you can see that my use comes up. I know pretty well when that's going to be in this case on a scheduled demand, and I'm ready to service the users. One would argue that December 11th, 12th, 13th time period, I probably have a little excess capacity, and I may even want to evaluate if I can get just a little bit tighter on that. But again, maybe that was a light week. You're going to need some more historical data before you want to shrink that too much further. But we'll show that there's actually a way out if you're a little wrong and you have a little bit more demand. You can see that we also fade that capacity back down based on user load. So the number of available machines actually goes down, and we've said, please get down to 1 per night, right? And so you can see that as the nightfall comes, or the end of the day comes for those business users, the amount of available machines goes down to that minimum of 1. So I'm always ready to service some load at some time. Again, this is a pretty idealistic scenario, more towards the 8 to 5 worker where we're kicking everybody off, but we're certainly able to do that. So you can see those users running throughout the week, and then on the weekend, we've also got 19 of those 20 machines deprovisioned. Maybe we see a small bit of load over the weekend, somebody checking in on something, doing something, but it looks like everybody is enjoying their holiday and getting their shopping done and getting ready for the next Monday. And you can see in that next Monday we hit and drop, and then what you'll see is that mid next week is we have some of the load-based rules kicking in. Again, we talked about that seasonal aspect. In this scenario, we're certainly getting closer to Christmas, and you can see that we have now exceeded our requirement from a schedule-based perspective. We now need more than that 11 machines, and we start to see the load provision an additional, in this case, 4 machines. So we've now effectively bursted based on time of need, and those users have used it, and we've faded back down to that 11 based on maybe a sudden login storm of quick transactional users that we were able to get off. So again, trying to keep some real cost effectiveness. It's important to note that since Autoscale and Citrix in general, through the provisioning processes, managing the identity, the only thing you're keeping is a small identity disk and destroying the disk and the VM. So you are truly saving on not only all the compute, but all the storage as well for this solution, which is why you see that huge cost savings of 73% there over just running 20 machines. So one thing to note is we got those users on, and we were successfully able to take that spike and bump up to 15 machines, but to balance that need with efficiency, we need to get those users off, and we need to decide what business rules around that we want. Do we want to let them stay on for, I mean, obviously if they're active, we're going to allow them to work, but if we want to assure that those users are off so that we can get those machines down as quickly as possible, we need to do a couple things. We need to have the right mix of policies for disconnect timers. So we don't want to let somebody linger for longer than we feel necessary from a business perspective on that machine, so that we can log that user off and reduce the user count eventually to 0 on that machine, so that it can be turned off and deprovisioned. And we also want to have smaller host sizes. Obviously, if we are having huge hosts that we're running with 30 to 40 users on them, the chances of them going down to 0 is going to be much, much smaller than if we just had a smaller host, more cost-effective host with a smaller number of users on it. We may be more likely to drain those machines and turn them off and deprovision them if we are carefully managing the user ratios on them. And then we can be assured that we are getting down to that minimal number at night, ideally back in this scenario to that one machine that's always on. Again, if we have users that linger, we can play with that formula and go through our Azure cost estimates and see what that's all about. So this is again a real value add to Citrix and kind of closely demonstrates how you would want to configure idealistically some of these policies to meet your needs and to show the business the most economical way forward to meet their demands. So let's talk about what this looks like from management. We talked about, we kind of saw in that last graph, really, what does this look like? And this may be, a console that if you're a Citrix admin, you've seen this before, but we really, again, have that schedule based. So you saw that in the 11 machines in our previous example being turned up at any one given time. And then you see our load-based scaling. So we can define what those peak times are, and we can define a capacity buffer, meaning as we define what that is, we can say how much buffer would I like. Again, less buffer is more efficiency from a monetary perspective. More buffer will give you more capacity to onload a greater number of users more quickly without any wait from a provisioning perspective. So if you are expecting a login storm in the morning, you may want to have more buffer because you're going to service a number of users quickly. And if you have a more steady state type of situation, you may be okay to keep less of a buffer and be more economical in your approach. And then you can also do some miscellaneous settings around power settings just to make sure that you understand. And of course, put in your machine cost because we actually can help calculate some of these things. So quickly, this is just an example of walking through kind of some of those settings for allowing some of those settings that we just walked through. And again, this is supported not just in Azure, but you can see that it's supported on Citrix Hypervisor, Google Cloud, Acropolis, and we have some pretty hefty capabilities as far as number of VDAs, et cetera, that we can support as well. So again, I think this is probably the best technology for a consumption-based model. So specifically Microsoft Azure and again Google Cloud, et cetera. But it will also very effectively work from managing an overall footprint of compute in an on-prem data center as well through the various platforms you see here. And on top of that, we get a nice handy dashboard to really show us how much we have saved from a compute perspective in any one instance. So we can do the analytics required to see if there's any additional savings that we can have, always keeping an eye on the ever-changing business patterns so that we can tightly manage our finances, report up through our chain of command as far as consumption versus need and assure everybody that we're managing that appropriately for the business's needs. And we can see that over a trending period of time. You can see in the example here, a day, a week, a month, et cetera. So again, a lot of capabilities here. And and this kind of shows some of the back end model for how we're actually coordinating all of that information into Director and being able to understand how that translates to a financial model. And again, some guidance here on how that financial model is really calculated. And the savings is just what you think it is. It's that number of machines that are off by the cost per hour of machine where it's been saved. So very, very sensible and allows you to really see and understand what you're saving, how you're saving, and why you're saving it based on the instance types you have selected. So overall, Autoscale and cloud bursting is a tremendously useful tool. It allows you to defray some of the costs of on-prem infrastructure and instead assure that you have a just-in-time delivery of compute resources to your workload and to your users, while being as economically responsible as possible with those consumption-based resources in Microsoft Azure.
Fantastic. We do have some questions here for you, Ryan. One of them, I know you just touched on it there, a little bit about supporting it on-prem or hoping to shift that load. But the question here is just asking about, is this something where you can have your own on-prem hosting leveraged, or do you need to already be 100% in the cloud to take advantage of Autoscale?
Autoscale is a feature that's attached to the Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop service. So it is exclusive to that platform. That being said, the workloads, as we pointed out here, can run both on-prem and in the cloud. So you can effectively manage workloads wherever they sit in your infrastructure as a result.
Right. Other question here. I know you talked about some of the seasonal work like retail and things like that, industries like that can really take advantage of this auto scaling. But the question here is just around, could this be leveraged around for, say, higher education? If you know that you're going to have certain, your students are going to be taking courses in the fall and the spring, certainly it seems, at least I'll defer to you, but even for me, it seems like this could be a good way to sort of deal with that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Higher education is a great example. I know that I have ongoing education, and I often have, for example, desktops provisioned to me for that use of that class, and bursting that capability into the cloud and servicing that request, whether that be a day-long seminar, a week-long training class where I may wish to, maintain some level of persistence between day to day, or simply providing an effective workspace for that student and managing that cost, especially in those short-run type of solutions. This is a great model because it allows for you to consume based on that class need or that educational need exclusively, and then again reduce those resources or eliminate them once that class is over.
Yeah, fantastic. And then I, of course, as mentioned, I am a Coretek's digital marketing specialist. So I'd be remiss if I didn't get you to plug us a little bit here. But with Coretek's reputation as being an expert MSP, along with our relationship with Citrix, Citrix and Microsoft have long pushed the better together narrative. Could you talk a little bit how sort of we're uniquely positioned, given our background and our DNA, about how we really help these two play together and how Autoscale, factors into that relationship?
Absolutely. So we at Coretek here have been around since 2005, and we really grew up in virtualization and user compute, with Citrix being one of our primary partners, and we're a platinum partner of Citrix. We have been doing Citrix essentially since our inception, and we've been doing it at extremely high levels. We've done numerous enterprise rollouts, have done numerous healthcare rollouts, again, in the tens of thousands of desktops sometimes. And one of the things we also did as a company was about 5 years ago, we invested ourselves fully into the cloud and fully into Microsoft Azure. And in doing so, we have built up an expertise around that and have become that coveted Azure expert MSP. There's only a very few in the United States and a very few in the world, as a matter of fact, that it really represents just how deeply we understand the Azure solution, the Azure platform, and understand all of the dynamics, not only with the technology, but the economics. And this is really, truly where our two great partnerships come together, and we're able to execute on cloud-based workloads not only from a desktop perspective from Citrix, but then all of the other app modernization efforts going on, and are able to deliver, these very modern workflows from a cloud first stance and work through some of the complexities that are inherent to it, and then be able to deliver on the economic promise that is a cloud platform through specifically the use of Autoscale in this case.
Great, yeah, and I think for myself, I think it really demonstrates our commitment to customer success too, because in this particular case, you're talking about saving customers money. We're not wanting them to use more than they need. We want it really to fit what they need as a customer, and not oversell them, not to just have them be consuming at rates they don't need to. We really want it optimized for them. And I think, to your point, having the experience in the relationship with both Citrix, the relationships with both Citrix and Microsoft, along with that desire to really put the customers first to achieve project success, I think Autoscale is really one of those situations where you can really see, yeah, we are really trying to make it as optimal for the customers as we can. We're not just doing solutions to load it up and line our pockets. We're really trying to make the project successful for them.
Everybody wins with Autoscale. Customers get the dynamic environments that they really require. They get those at an economic efficiency, and the vendors get to show, just our partners, Citrix, Microsoft, get to show the true capabilities of their technologies and why they have such value, not only on their own, but as we know, better together, and can really enable business.
Great. Well, I know we are still a little bit ahead of time here, but I think we'll go ahead and give everyone back the extra time because I'm not seeing any other questions here in the chat. If you have any questions after viewing this video, two different ways that you can really reach out to us. Easiest way is maybe to head to coretek.com. You can schedule a meeting there. There's a link underneath the solutions to do so. We're happy to route you towards the right people there and start taking those first steps to really figure out what that solution, the best solution for your unique organization is going to look like. Or you can, of course, reach out to us via email. We'll be sending out the recording, like I said, after today, so you can reply to that email, and we can get that request routed correctly as well. So again, either the website or replying to the email are probably the two best ways if you're interested in following up with us. And then we will be, I think it's actually a couple weeks until our next Tech Tuesday webinar. Next week, we are doing a special webinar on Wednesday focused on article security. So that's, of course, not going to be a Tech Tuesday. That's happening on Wednesday. And then the following week, we are taking a week off, but we will be back for Teams adoption. I believe that is going to be on November 3rd is when we'll be doing that one. So there'll be invites for that going out soon. But that will be a couple weeks off before we're back in front of you there. Want to thank everybody who did join and is watching this recording, and thank you for registering for the webinar. Like I said, November 3rd, Tuesday, will be our next one. And until then, I want to thank you all again and have a fantastic afternoon. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.